Today we're diving into a really critical idea that honestly, it affects pretty much every workplace, from a tiny startup all the way up to Parliament. And the question is this: how do we actually know if we're doing a good job? We're going to use this idea of parliamentary stewardship to get to the bottom of that constant fight between getting real stuff done and, well, just looking like you're getting stuff done.
It seems so simple, doesn't it? What does good actually look like? But in any big, complicated system, think about your own job, or in this case, Parliament, that is probably the single most important question you can ask. Because if you don't have a clear answer, the whole system just starts rewarding all the wrong things.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off with what we're calling the performance problem. Then we'll get into the absolute core of this, the huge difference between outputs and outcomes. That'll show us why optics so often win out. After that, we'll talk about a better way, stewardship, and we'll wrap up with a pretty uncomfortable question about who actually succeeds in these kinds of systems.
All right, let's jump into part one, the performance problem. This is all about that slippery slope where just being seen to be working starts to become more important than the actual work itself.
Now, this isn't really about people being lazy or trying to game the system. It's just a natural human response. When you don't know what success is supposed to look like, you focus on what you can count. Who showed up to the meeting? Who gave a speech? The system defaults to what is visible, not necessarily what's valuable.
And that leaves us right to the heart of this entire conversation, the crucial distinction between outputs and outcomes. Seriously, getting your head around this is the key to understanding why so many organizations feel like they're just spinning their wheels.
First up, outputs. Think of these as the doing part. They're all the activities, the stuff that's super easy to put on a spreadsheet. How many emails did you send? How many meetings did you attend? It's the tangible, countable busy work. But is it the real work?
Well, that's where outcomes come in. Outcomes are the effects of all that activity. It's not about what you did, it's about what changed because of what you did. Was a bad decision avoided? Was a future mistake prevented? You see, these things are way, way harder to measure, and often you don't see them for a long, long time.
And right here, this is the fundamental tension. On one side, you've got outputs. They're immediate, they're easy to see, they're easy to count. Speeches, votes, appearances, check, check, check. But on the other side, you've got outcomes. These are slow, they're subtle, and a lot of the time they're completely invisible. I mean, how do you give someone credit for a disaster that didn't happen? It's almost impossible.
So, what happens in a system that's basically blind to outcomes? Well, part 3 spells it out perfectly, when optics win. This is where looking good starts to push actually being good right out of the room.
It's like a vacuum, you know? If the system can't see the real, long-term results, it's going to fill that empty space with something it can see, and that's optics. Substance has to go head-to-head with appearance, and appearance almost always wins, because you get the reward for it right now.
And look, it is so tempting to just blame people for this, but it's really a system problem. Just think about it. When you're under pressure and time is short, being visible feels a lot safer than being quietly effective. When everyone's attention span is a mile a minute, a simple, clear message will always beat a complicated, nuanced one. The system isn't evil, it doesn't explicitly say ignore good work, it just doesn't create the time or the space for it to be recognized.
This really gets to the core of the challenge. How on earth do you take a victory lap for something that just looks like nothing? The best outcomes are often the crises that were avoided, the bad laws that were never passed, the problems that never happened in the first place.
So what do these invisible victories actually look like in the real world? Well, it's less chaos. It's fewer last-minute panicked fixes to bad legislation. It's laws that actually work when they hit the real world. It's way fewer of those "how did nobody see this coming" moments. You don't get a medal for these things on the day they happen. You just get a slightly better country 5 years down the road.
So if that's the problem, what's the antidote? This brings us to section 4, the case for stewardship. It's about shifting our focus to a much quieter, but way more important kind of success.
The word stewardship might sound a little old-fashioned, but the idea is absolutely vital. It's about playing the long game. It's the slow, patient work of making sure our institutions are still working tomorrow and the day after that. It's about resisting that flashy quick fix and instead just trying to leave things a little bit better than you found them.
And this quote from the source material just says it all, doesn't it? Stewardship is slow, it's cumulative, and it doesn't lend itself to clips. That perfectly captures why this kind of deep, important work gets so little attention. It's the exact opposite of a viral moment.
So, we've talked about the system, we've talked about a different mindset, but what does all this do to the actual human beings who have to work inside this system every day? That's what we're going to explore in our final section.
Think about it. If you're in a job where no one can clearly tell you what winning looks like, what do? You improvise. You guess. Some people will chase the cameras. Others will just put their heads down and do the quiet work. From the outside, it all just looks inconsistent and messy. But from the inside, it feels like a constant, draining state of guesswork.
And here is the quiet tragedy of it all. The system itself can't actually tell the difference between the person who's just chasing headlines and the person who is quietly preventing a future catastrophe. It doesn't have the words or the tools to value them differently, so it just ends up pretending that all of their efforts are basically the same. And so this leaves us with a really big, really uncomfortable final question. In a system like this, what kind of effort does Parliament actually end up rewarding? What does that do to the kind of person who thrives in that environment? And maybe even more importantly, who are the thoughtful, patient, long-term thinkers, the stewards, who take one look at that system and just quietly decide to leave? It's a question that's worth thinking about, not just for our institutions, but for any team or organization that we're a part of.